I don't know if Penn State fans want good news this week. I think we've settled into we want to be angry is just the vibe I've gotten. And of course, like I'm getting that from Twitter and other places where we go and congregate to discuss Penn State football. The Blue White Illustrated message board has been salty this week. Here in the chat, it's been a little bit rough. But here's the thing, Sean Fitz. There is good news out there for the Nittany Lions, especially after the whiteout. That's what we're talking about today. Whiteout recruiting seems like it went pretty dang well. Some other bad news, obviously, we're going to get to today, and UCLA. If there's a get-right game on the schedule that Penn State desperately needed, it would be this weekend. So is that going to be what happens? We're going to break down this game and give you our thoughts about that. That's all on the rundown for today. But Fitz, how are you doing today? How's it going?
I'm doing wonderful. The kids are off, so if you hear screaming in the background, or if you see me go mute and just see my mouth yelling at kids, that's why. No, it's good. It's a beautiful day. You move past it, and it's funny. You say, Penn State fans don't want good news. The first thing in the chat, we need some good news. Okay, well, we'll do what we can here. All right. Don't really produce the news, more so report it. But we'll see where it goes with that. And actually, I was having this conversation with some folks tailgating this weekend. Is like my judgment is clouded. Maybe not my judgment, but my opinions are clouded by like in-game threads and message boards, and that's kind of the place that you don't get your non-hot takes. So that's where I'm at with that. So we try and be on the level here and try and figure this stuff out. This is basically a recruiting show, but I was also texting with somebody in the network last night. They were asking about our show format, and I was like, well, Thursday has kind of been it's been a football sort of therapy session more so than anything. Because you get past it, you watch the tape, you figure out it's not as bad as you think. Figure out sometimes it's not as good as you think. But here we are on a Thursday once again. Ryan is off this weekend for I believe a wedding. So we're not going to get his insight, but he's been tearing it up on BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. So check that out if you haven't gotten a chance.
Yeah, and I do terrible at this, so we are going to pause here for a second to tell you about this because this is an awesome deal, and I haven't been doing a good enough job here on the show proper. It's the outro to all of our stuff, so you've seen it before, but you can get BlueWhiteIllustrated.com right now for $52 for the first year. We've done this promo in the past. It's super popular. This is now more than half off, so you can get here into BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for our premium content, my full film breakdowns. I share as much as I can here on this limited platform we only got an hour 3 times a week, couple of videos here and there. I had 30 minutes of breakdown on the offense on Sunday and Monday. So we can't get to all that here, like I said. $52 for the first year, and you get a full year of access to The Athletic included. Also, if you're here and you're watching the show, you don't need to hear this, but I want to talk to some people out there. So we get the numbers on like who's watching the show, who's watching the channel, and the regular viewers here. Like, you guys are the best. We love you. I don't have to say much to you guys. You get it. Like the video, subscribe, all those great things. But I want to talk to the casual viewers here for a second. There's about 20% of you that show up to the show every once in a while, show up to the channel. You watch some of our stuff. You know who we are. Listen, I want you to know who I am as a person. I have been accused multiple times in my life of being a serial monogamist. So if you decide to commit to us, to Blue White Illustrated, the YouTube channel, subscribe. Super low investment on your part. And here's the thing. I'm going to be here. I'm a dude who shows up. Here are the list of people who really have liked me in my lifetime. Moms. Church ladies. Randomly, for about 5 years, I would go to Penn State games and be walking back, and people would ask me for directions. This thing, for some reason, I don't know what it is. Like, people just look at me like, hey, that guy, he's probably safe. So, like, and I'm not bragging, by the way. This is not a brag. Before I got married, it was a huge bummer because you know who the girls wanted? The guys their moms didn't like. So, like, all I'm saying here is if you want to give us a shot, you're here, it's casual, it's cool, I get it. I'm not a casual person, so I'm going to give you just the spiel of you should subscribe here to the YouTube channel because I'm in it for the long haul. And if you want to be in it for the long haul and join the rest of us, we would love that. Okay, let's get to the bad news, Fitz. Tony Rojas, now done for an extended period of time. Of course, like with the phrasing of these things, long-term injury does not say season ending, although all indications are it's not good. And the vibes at practice, after practice, were not great yesterday with Penn State head coach James Franklin for a number of reasons. We talked about this yesterday on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. You wrote about it on the website. So I just want to get your thoughts here on the impact of losing Tony Rojas?
Sucks a lot. I mean, you're going to go with the in-depth analysis there. Rojas, you look at Penn State's linebacker room, and we knew this. Well, we knew it back in the spring before Tamir Robinson transferred, before they even brought in Amari Campbell, who's been a really nice surprise for Penn State, been a really nice get out of the portal for Penn State. But you knew that was a serious drop off, I think, from, you feel pretty decent about the first three. Now it's going to be Dom DeLuca that's going to be settling in there. You give up some athleticism there, you get some experience, you get some being in the right spot stuff, but you do give up a lot of athleticism there. But yeah, then there was questions, and there's still questions, and I think that's the thing that James Franklin, Dan Connor tried to stress in the first couple of weeks of the season was, yes, they're playing a lot of guys, but they still don't feel great. Jim Knowles was actually the number one leading that charge was, hey, we feel pretty good about three. And then you've got Keon Wiley, you've got Anthony Specca, Dakari Nelson, you've got a couple of freshmen that are in there now. But yeah, it's going to be dicey, because you look at how Penn State's defense was structured, and they brought back a bunch of really good players. And then they were going to have to fill in the, at every spot you had Zane, and then everyone else, Deny, then everyone else, Tony, then everyone else, AJ Harris, then everyone else, then Zaki, then everyone else, and that's a bit heavy handed. Like, that's not exactly how that is played out, but you had situations where you had a guy, and then you had to figure out the rest from there. And every spot on that defense, every level on that defense is going to be hurt by an injury like that. And I think it's going to be tough. Now, Penn State's still got a pretty good defense. Again, you pivot to Dom DeLuca, which I think gives you something out there. It's not I lived through Jan Johnson at Michigan. There were times when Penn State's linebacker room was worse off, but at the same time, it's tough to get over.
It wasn't just Jan Johnson at Michigan. There was also Brown.
Jan Johnson is kind of a state of mind example there, because you had Brandon Smith in there, you had Brandon as a freshman, you had ended up being an NFL player, but it was a 6'5", 205-pound freshman playing linebacker at that point. What I remember. It's not. I mean, Jan ended up doing some really good things and had a cup of coffee in the NFL, and I believe he's coaching now. But it's more of a state of mind example of how far that one got, and how just ridiculous. I mean, it was like the year that Maryland lost 4 quarterbacks, the year that Iowa lost 5 tailbacks. It was one of those things, and it doesn't come along often. And hopefully for Penn State it doesn't get to that, but it has been worse. But yeah, you've got to. That's why we play college football. You can't go out and sign a guy right now in the middle of the season to make it work, and that's what makes college football unique. And yeah, you're going to have to see those guys step up, especially Wiley and Speck are kind of right in the crosshairs, and if they can't do it. I mean, I think though that they're close enough, or at least Specca is close enough to the early mark of his career that, a guy like Alex Tash, they seem very high on Cam Smith. Those guys can come along. Now, I think you're going to have to coach around it. You look at, I wrote yesterday that you're looking at a 4-2-5, and it's good it's a 4-2-5 because they don't have enough to play a traditional 4-3 with the experience that they have. But you're going to have to look at Zion Tracy. You're going to have to look at Zaki Wheatley. You're going to have to look at all these different ways to sort of make up on the other end how you're going to play this defense now. And that's the part that's a work in progress, because the first part's a work in progress too, because Jim Knowles is 4 games into his Penn State tenure.
Right. So a couple things here in the chat I just want to get to. Beverly asks, and by the way, welcome, Beverly. I don't want to assume some things, but you're part of the 6% of the women that watch this show, so thank you for being here. Apologies if this has already been answered, but did Rojas play through the injury on Saturday? Seemed like he got injured and stayed in. He did get injured. He was banged up early in that game and then came back into the game. As far as I understand from what I have heard and the things that I've said, it is something separate. It is not related to what happened to him in the game. So this is just as Stephen Light said earlier in the chat, just super bad luck for Tony, who's had a lot of these things, played through an injury last year, got banged up in the game, and then now this happened. Now, Logan Carpenter asks, can he redshirt? We're not going to get to the Bo thing, Logan. Sorry. We have a whole segment. We're not playing What About Bo just now. Maybe we'll play it later. But anyway.
Be a great graphic.
Can he redshirt for that situation?
Yes, so he didn't redshirt his freshman year, and he's only played in 4 games. So people are asking about medical redshirts. This is a typical redshirt. You can find yourself in a situation, and we don't expect him back this year. I mean, long-term injury is the program's sort of standard for these things, but we don't expect him back this year. And you're looking at a situation where, he's going to, provided he comes back next year, he'll be a redshirt junior. So like this is just for the people that don't follow it as closely. You get 4 games, and if you stay under that 4-game threshold, you get you can redshirt. You can preserve that redshirt. You don't have to be a freshman. It's not a first year player thing specifically. So Tony played in 4 games this year. He will be a redshirt sophomore if he decides, or excuse me, a redshirt junior if he decides to return, because he did play as a true freshman. So he's good to go in that regard.
But there would be, if something were to then happen further, a medical redshirt is still available to him because of this. Like, I guess we don't want to. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, because like we don't want to get into all of that. I guess the thing that I think about long term as well with Tony, like as the player, he is so immensely talented, and I don't think he's really even had the time to physically develop the way he got out to such a fast start as a freshman in the Penn State weight program, going from 195 pounds to about 225 pounds in one offseason of really good work. And then obviously last year in the offseason, he had to have some surgery, get that corrected, was out, and then put in the work that he could put in. He's a freak athlete, so his body responds differently than yours or mine, but all human bodies are basically the same. They all are built the same way. So to not have another offseason of physical development. This is the same conversation we had with Katron Allen, where the timing of this injury is obviously terrible for Rojas, not just for the team and for this year. And you know, guys like Alonzo Ford have proven me wrong that you can come back faster than, you know, a full year before your injury. At the same time, you know, he talked yesterday about having to get back out there and trusting his knee and you know, kind of like getting the rhythm of the game back. And just like next year, when we talk about Tony Rojas, like I hope he comes back stronger than he is this year. But to me, I always put a pin in these things of, if we're expecting Tony Rojas, like the best version of him in August or September of 2026, I'm still going to wait and see on that, because I want to give these guys time to actually recover from all of these injuries, whatever they may be. Again, speculation on my part of what the injury is and the timeline for his recovery. So that's that's fair.
That's fair. And I'm stuck on a comment here in the chat. Someone said that he could, you know, legitimately sit out the rest of the season, then play in the postseason. Technically, that's true. I wouldn't set your expectations there.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple things in the outset here when talking about replacing Tony, and I guess I wonder too, do you have to change the structure of the defense? Because part of, and this is maybe scheme specific to a team like Oregon, who brought you so many threats across the field from speed and formation and things like that. Do you have to rely more on a safety closer to the box now? Can you play kind of the structure of this defense if you're now trying to protect a freshman or Dom DeLuca in certain situations where you thought you saw Amari Campbell and Tony Rojas play outside the tackle box a lot in that game against Oregon? Do you think you can still do that and defend the run the same way if you don't have Tony Rojas? That's something, at least for me, like that's an early preview of what we're going to talk about to end the show with the UCLA preview. Do you have any thoughts about adapting the defense as a whole, or to you, is it really just we got to plug this hole at linebacker and figure out the depth?
Yeah, I think with DeLuca, you're okay. Yeah, like I said, you're going to give up some of the athleticism. You're going to give up some of the things that you're able to do with that spot, just because Tony could move so well. And Dom can move well too, but it's kind of apples and oranges when you're talking about that athleticism there, because Tony, as you mentioned, is a freak athlete. I like adapt rather than change. You know, you're talking about finding ways to work around that. Now, the question that I have is, if you adapt, if you bring in an extra safety net, and they showed the other night they don't have a problem playing, you know, kind of moving AJ Harris around, moving Elliott Washington and Davian Collins playing 3 corners. It's just a question about the third safety here in my mind. Belgrave Shorter started the season. King Mack has taken that job. James Franklin says it's still open, but I think the snap counts are pretty indicative that King Mack has that job in hand. So how do you move around that? Is a guy like Dejon Lane a possibility in one of those hybrid roles? You know, he is, I think, more of an athlete, more of a Rojas, really. You know, if you're looking at you know, what he provides to the to the run game. But yeah, I think there's too many questions about that to turn it around in 1 week. Would be the way that I go with that.
Yeah. Well, let's put a pin in this because a lot of the changes and a lot of the conversation we're going to have are going to happen once we get more information, and that comes this weekend when they play UCLA. Quick time to remind you that this show is brought to you by Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise, longtime sponsor here of the show. If you've watched this show, you know about Andy. You know what he does. Maybe you've been listening since the very beginning, and you've been saving up. You've been squirreling away your bonuses and your Christmas gifts from your parents. I don't know your situation. But if you want to finally leave your current job in the corporate rat race for the American dream, you want to start a side hustle maybe so that you can start squirreling away bigger pieces of income to then do something big in your life, diversify, build wealth, or leave a legacy to your family. It doesn't matter. All of our reasons for wanting more money are our own. But the one thing that I think unites almost every single person in America is, yeah, we'd like more money. And one of the ways you do that is to own your own business. Andy Ludicky, My Perfect Franchise. By the way, the foundation of the American dream is to own your own business and be your own boss. Check out My Perfect Franchise. He can help you do that. That's something where if you've got the skills, the technical ability, and of course, like we just talked about, the hard reality of the financial resources to do this, he's here to help you make that leap. 404-973-9901 or Andy at myperfectfranchise.net to get on his calendar. Doesn't matter where the economy is, there's always an opportunity in business because it's not that everything is always just bad, it's that the things are changing. There's always constant change in the economy. And good, bad, different, change is change, and it creates opportunity for people who know how to take advantage of it. And Andy is an expert at understanding the trends of business to know what businesses are worth investing in and what are a short-term scam. Health and medical is huge right now. He has a lot of blue-collar businesses, construction company, or trash companies, porta potties, things that don't go out of style just because things change. So check him out, and he'll give you the information and the knowledge that he has to help you make the best decision for your future. Also, speaking of your future, investing in yourself, investing in a home, that is a massive step. One that I took, it was terrifying. And you got to find somebody to help you walk through that process because it is the single largest investment. Unless you're somebody like on Andy's level who has like, I'll invest in 2 or 3 companies. Most of us, our biggest investment of our life is going to be our home. So it's a major life milestone, one that deserves guidance and experience from a professional because it doesn't have to be scary. It should be exciting. It should be something that makes you and your family proud and something that you can do with confidence. Well, you do that by going to Lusk & Associates, Sotheby International Realty, known for delivering world-class service backed by a trusted name and commitment to excellence, and is a legend so well known in Southeast Pennsylvania. She and her team are now here in Happy Valley, in Center County, and in State College. So if you're looking for investment property here, maybe if you got in the future, one of your kids is coming to State College, and instead of paying for insane rental prices, like the price of renting an apartment is just insane. I called it tenement housing when I was here because you shove like 9 or 10 kids into one dorm room downtown, and then like you all share one small oven that's like this big. Don't do that. Maybe you want to invest in a property where over 4 years you've amortized your gains or whatever the numbers and words are. I don't know. I bought one house, but they know how to do this. So proud supporter of everything blue and white and is a Penn State super fan. That's why she's here supporting the channel. And because she wants to let you know if you're here in State College, if you're in Happy Valley, she's here to help. Her and her agents, give them a call at 814-808-7588 or visit luskandassociates.com. You can also just Google Ann Lusk Realty and her website will come up. You can check out all the different places that you can buy a house. Not just here in State College, by the way, like across the state. She's in so many different areas. So check her out and see if she can help you. Lusk & Associates, Sotheby International Realty, where experience meets excellence. Well, it, again, was not what Penn State wanted in terms of the outcome of the game between Oregon and Penn State, but the Penn State recruiting news, Fitz, almost immediately after the game, was stellar. So I want to go through some of this with you. You've been keeping a closer eye on this as I buried my face into the film. But Steve Wiltfong had a lot of positive things to say about Penn State and some of the prospects that were at that game. So take us through what we know so far of the positive outcomes for Penn State and their recruiting efforts in the whiteout. First off, I apologize. I know I've been talking for like 5 minutes straight, but like, give us the big picture. how did the environment go? How was the atmosphere for recruits, and what was the general response to the game?
I mean, first off, that's the best atmosphere I've ever seen there. Like, it was ridiculous. And it was really, really cool for a while. Sustaining that atmosphere was tough, especially with the offensive performance, because you've got to sort of keep that up. Like, you've got to keep everything up. And people keep asking, if it was a 40-36 game, where there's a lot of points, a lot of atmosphere, or excuse me, a lot of entertainment value in it. Like, how does that change things? I think, yeah, it does change things. Like, there's no sugarcoating that for 3 quarters they watched the same football game that everybody that's watching the show watched, and that's tough to get over. Now, the sticking point is the pregame. The sticking point is the atmosphere, the loudness, and then again in overtime, it was really loud. I was watching down on the field, with some Letterman, and it was pretty well amped up. And that is the selling point. When you make highlight videos to send to prospects, you highlight the top end things, and that's exactly what that was. Now, again, did they maximize it? I don't think so, because you're looking at a situation where you played some unentertaining football. The crowd is going to probably hurt them at some point. And not so much with the players, really, but more so the parents that are watching, student section chant Fire Franklin and the boos and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? You're going to get that everywhere. Like, that's not the point, though. Like, you're going to get different atmospheres, different expectations and atmospheres. And I think that's the point that is probably going to ring true. So the question you get out of these, and I've seen it for years, is does the loss matter? And in the micro, no, but when it's a pattern of behavior, when you are what everyone says you are on a national level, that's
right.
Tough to overcome. Like, that is tough.
They're a meme. They were a meme on Sunday and Monday. And even today, like, this week has been dump on Penn State, like, joke about Penn State's inability to win big games week. It's been pretty universal.
Right. And you're looking at a national media last week that's picking Oregon because of not so much of Oregon. And Oregon's a fantastic team, and that, like, great program. They're going to be probably they're going to be in the Big Ten title game. They're going to do everything they did last year. But big part of that pick was Penn State in big games, James Franklin in big games, and you just keep proving them right. And that's the tough thing to overcome, is sort of this pattern of behavior. Again, I say behavior because I don't. First off, I got The Office in the back of my mind playing with the anyway. But you've got a pattern of behavior that is tough to overcome, and I think that is when you look at where the losses matter, and a team that has won more than 5 or 6 teams in college football in the last 4 or 5 years. Like, that's insane to me. that this is what defines Penn State as a program. And that's why Florida can go 6-6 and have a top 10 class. A lot of these schools that don't have those sort of reputations don't suffer as much when they also don't win as much, which is really remarkable to see.
That is
things. And I think part of that is accessibility. Part of that is all the things that we talk about all year long, is like Penn State, the coolness factor is still not there, even though they like the Penn State staff. I think that's that's really how you look at it. Now, Penn State's still going to end up with a class right around number 15, and that's kind of where they're always at. They're going to end up there in 2026, and they got to better that on 2027. They're off to a nice start, but at the same time, when you lose these games, when you lose these series of games, it's going to keep you in the stratosphere that you currently are, which is a great spot, but also not where Penn State fans want to be.
And it was the opportunity for coming into the game. I think Ryan mentioned this week the fact that they made the semifinal of the CFP and they were in the playoff for the first time, and they had this opportunity for some new juice.
Right.
Kind of feels like if there was a moment to capitalize on it, it was then, and they didn't really boost that by beating Oregon. They didn't continue that momentum. So I guess and this has been a conversation that is pretty cut and dried when it comes to recruiting. So I just want to ask you here again, like the value of what you just said. James Franklin's program has been very good at playing above that 13th to 15th rank in recruiting, being in the top 6 or 7, but not being able to be in the top 2 or 3. The last time they had a top 5 class was 2022. Those guys are all seniors now.
Right.
So, I guess, like, where does this go? And like, how, nobody cares, I guess, is what I'm driving at in the opinion
you're
part of this.
Absolutely correct that nobody cares. Like, it is a situation where you see everything laid out in front of you, people are going to call them excuses. A lot of these things are reality, and whoever is the coach at Penn State is going to have to deal with the reality that this is a tough place to come. Central Pennsylvania, not a great spot to attract the top football talent in the country. And the 70s and 80s and 90s don't matter right now, like is a very different world. And you're looking at a situation where Penn State is, punching above its weight class from a recruiting 13 to 15, finishing 4 last year, sort of 3-4 last year, and then being a top 10 program. Yes, that's great. But you're also right that nobody cares. Just win the game, right? Like I was listening to something the other day, and there's like, just win the game. And it's that simple. But that is the expectation, right? That is how you have looked at this from a results-oriented business. And hey, recruiting is all about the results. It is not about how many guys you're in a top 5 for. It's not about how many guys you're in a top 3 for. It is a recruits-oriented position where you can see progress in the process, but also if the results aren't there, it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, what jumped into my head again, not really on the rundown for the conversation, but in the article we're about to get into with Steve Wiltfong, he starts the Penn State whiteout game with Oregon's success in that environment with the players that he spoke to about Oregon's win in the whiteout, and then later got to what we'll talk about with some of the predictions he put in for Penn State. But, just casually skimming those 5 stars, high 4 stars, top X at this position, just feels like that's the reality of the recruiting situation of Penn State is, and we're going to get to these players, and I don't want to take anything away from these guys. These are really important names, really good football players. But that's the difference, I guess, in this conversation, as far as what I can see, is like how that results in those outcomes of positive momentum for a program that's already on, a massive exponential curve in terms of recruiting success versus Penn State, which is maintaining its position where it has been.
Yeah, and I think so. I sent you the Wiltfong Whip Around article. Steve wrote multiple articles on Penn State, and several of them were focused on Penn State. But kind of the crux of the situation there is Oregon won the football game, so there's going to be more excitement for the team that won the football game than the team that hosted and had the great atmosphere. And again, there will probably be dozens of players that visited this past weekend over the course of multiple classes that end up on Penn State's roster. And this will be a sticking point and be a part of it. Will the top guys that, have all the options, that have all the opportunities to do so, be a part of that? I mean, you're kind of still in the same spot. You had an opportunity in front of you, and sort of it's, Franklin loves to say this all the time. It's everything, right? It's playing an entertaining brand of football. It is, how are you going to recruit quarterbacks if your quarterback is a punchline right now, which is really interesting considering you're looking at Clemson, you're looking at LSU, you're looking at Texas with the same exact situation of they have the guy, they have the prospect, and they're underperforming at quarterback. How do you recruit that? How do you get over? I think it was Joel Klatt that said this week that you have to be a certain type of quarterback to play under Andy Kotelnicki, and Penn State doesn't have that right now. Like, how do you see these questions in the general atmosphere of what you're consuming as a prospect or as a fan? Sorry, I don't mean to trample your. How do you consume all of that and then still get over that? Well, you can smooth over that as a coach, as a recruiting. The recruiting staff at Penn State is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. They do an amazing job of getting them up to where they need to be, and then it's about everyone else coming through and getting them across the line. So you can work back from this. Absolutely, I'm not suggesting otherwise, but boy, it's a lot easier when you win, I guess, is like my 5 minutes summed up in one sentence. It's a lot easier when you win.
Yeah, and I just wanted to throw in the aside of, you talk about quarterback, how do you get out of the receiver black hole that they're in right now in terms of, I think they've done a great job with some of the recruits they have that are freshmen right now, but those guys aren't on the field. Like, they're still in this quagmire that is a perception thing, that if receivers can't go to Penn State and be successful, in fact, they're more successful when they leave, is the narrative right now, even if, like, whatever the factors are that created that are, in the past and you can't do anything about them now, it is still part of this conversation. So that's a good transition to talk about the good news. So 4 players get a prediction coming out of this game. Let's go through those guys now and tell me what you think of them. I'll let you, dealer's choice of who you want to talk about first, to go through that list.
Yeah, 4 Pennsylvania guys. And that was kind of my main point when you're looking at going into this weekend. Penn State hosted 9 of the top 10 kids from Pennsylvania in the class of 2027 that, really, really good players. A couple of them already committed in Keemon Spell and Khalil Taylor. And that's how you sort of capitalize, right? You start inward and then you work your way out. And Pennsylvania's class of 2027, pretty good group so far. They're going to continue to evaluate. They're going to continue to evolve as prospects and things like that. So this top 10 is going to look different in 6 months than it's going to look now. But you guys know that. You follow recruiting. But 4 picks in here: Carter Bonner from Pittsburgh, Matthew Gregory from Eastern Pennsylvania, Abraham Cisse from Eastern Pennsylvania, and Brandon Lockley from Eastern Pennsylvania. Like I said, Pennsylvania is a sticking point right here. And that's kind of expected with the early commits or expected with the early predictions, because when you play this close to home, or when you are this close to home, you do have a bit of a head start there. Like you get these guys on campus earlier. You are the buzz in, and I, sort of labeled them as guys from certain areas because to emphasize how that works, because you've got an opportunity for your in-state kids to sort of build your, for lack of a better word, keystone of your class, like be the cornerstone of how you work these things out. So those 4 guys are guys that I thought Penn State led coming in. I think they've sort of re-emphasized their staff. Abraham Cisse picked up some big offers this week. I think Ohio State was one of them. So you've got an opportunity to was it Alabama? Sorry, I shouldn't have said that off the cuff because I have to go back and double check now. But you have an opportunity in state to make this work. Now you have to continue to push on all those guys that were there this weekend. But when you're taking a class of 25 to 27 and you can get 10, 12 of them from Pennsylvania, it makes a big difference. You look at Penn State's rosters over the year, Pennsylvania has been a massive part of it. And I don't think that's scientific research or anything like that, but I think it's common sense. So yeah, I think Penn State did a really good job done a really good job. My South Central Pennsylvania is coming out in that, but did a really good job in sort of showing these guys the blueprint and showing them what can be in front of them. And I think that's where you start from there. Those are all 2027 guys. They also had a bunch of 2026 guys. Ryan has talked about them. Steve has talked about them as well. So we'll maybe talk a little bit more about them later on the process, but just some interesting happenings in 2026 as well.
I just had him up here, and I'll put him up here again. Carter Bonner, athlete. What do you see from him in terms of positional fit, offense, defense? To me, I look at him and I see, wow, that looks like a safety, but I don't know. I haven't been following his recruiting very closely. So what's your indication of the athlete tag and where that kind of leans for him?
Yeah, I think Bonner's a safety. I mean, you've got a guy that he's always been wide receiver safety in my eyes. I think he kind of sees himself as a corner, which is kind of good. You want that in your safeties. So you've got an opportunity to make that work. So you just, when you're a Pennsylvania guy and you're one of the top athletes in Pennsylvania, kind of make it work from there. So he's a big kid. I think he's over 6'3" now. So that's going to be tough to play corner. But you've got an opportunity to be a really good safety. He's been missing, I believe he's missed a few games with a wrist injury. So there hasn't been a ton of evaluation. He's about 6'2", 190 right now. So you've got an opportunity there. And I keep saying got an opportunity. I got to get off that verbal crutch where you can go out to Pittsburgh, where you've done really, really well, and maybe push a little bit harder for a guy like Carter Bonner and see how that works.
And of course, because it was the transition, just again, we haven't really shown a lot of Matthew Gregory highlights here on the show as we're now transitioning to 2027. But how important is this recruitment just for the position and the talent of the player, where he ranks and all those things?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Gregory as a guy that's got special speed. And, not everybody can function at that special speed, but Gregory is a guy that's also got some pretty good quickness as well. You've got a guy that has been up to campus so far 9 or 10 times. I think Penn State's in the lead. And again, I talked to Steve the other day. These are Penn State is in a great spot picks, not necessarily Penn State's going to turn around and get a commitment for these guys in a couple games, but
gotcha.
Reestablishing where they stand at the top of the list.
And just for fans that are unaware, I just want to share this with you here on the screen. And of course, for the podcast audience, I will do my best to read the internet for you. But in the Rivals rankings, Matthew Gregory stands out as a top prospect at receiver, 39th overall nationally. or excuse me, 40th overall nationally. See, I said my best to read the internet for you. Rivals, he's 39th overall, ESPN 25th, 247. He's a little bit lower at 142, but still a 90 or better in all of these ranking systems and one of the top players in the country. You agree with that? You agree with that ranking right now? Do you think that'll stick? Because, just from a size perspective, I think he's listed at 6 foot, and, I don't have a judge. I haven't seen him up close, but the photo we have here on the show thumbnail makes him look like he's about 5'7". So I just wanted to see your thoughts on Matthew Gregory and kind of where all of that is headed in terms of his recruiting ranking, and if he is legitimately a guy that could come and be a difference maker in the program.
And this is so stupid for me to say, he's the same size as Jahan. He's just a hair shy of 6 foot. So yes, I agree. Okay. But the same feeling when you look at that picture, you think he's a 5'9" slot guy. And if he does poorly, people will label him as 5'8", but he's actually close to 6 foot. So yeah, he is a guy that can do that, be an inside out guy. I think it might be a little bit high, just based on what I saw from him at camp this year. I think he's really, really good, but I also tend to downplay everyone. So I've been told. So I'll go with he's probably not the number 39 player in the country, but I think he's top 100 kid, top 150 kid.
Well, it works out perfectly because I'm the hype man who's like, oh my gosh, look at the size of that guy. He's great. So if you downplay them, I pump them up. They'll land somewhere in the middle. It'll be perfect. Any other reactions or conversations from prospects, situations you thought were interesting this week that you want to share here as we wrap up the whiteout recruiting discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Penn State, kind of going back to the missed opportunity situation that we talked about earlier, I think one thing that is interesting here is that Penn State often lines up prospects after the game, right? Along the rope there on the sideline, and James Franklin comes through and gets handshakes. I'm sure you've seen people, tweeting out videos and pictures and stuff like that. We're right there taking videos and pictures as well. Didn't do that this game. And I'm curious how that's going to settle, because there was a lot of guys that were lined up waiting for that, and they did not do that. Now they got assistant coaches were over there, and recruiting guys and stuff were over there, and James never came by. I'm very curious to see what the feedback on that is going to be from players, because that is a time, not necessarily that matters all that much, but it does show that is the situation. James was obviously not too pleased after the game, and I'm curious to see what the fallout is there. I really am.
All right, well, we'll keep abreast of that over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Fitz does a great job. Ryan does a great job of covering recruiting. Fitz does recruiting and football during the regular season, which is just a lot in general. Let's talk now about the game coming up this weekend and how Penn State can get back, on the level after that loss to Oregon. UCLA on the road. The team has left or is leaving soon, so they'll be adjusting to the West Coast on Friday, and then, of course, playing the game 3:30 on Saturday. Just a reminder, the tailgate show will be at 12:30, 3 hours before kickoff. We'll be over at the Penn State Conference Center. I think it's the Legends. Is it the Legends pub that's in the Penn State Conference Center? Over on Innovation Park.
It has honestly changed a couple. Actually, I'm thinking of the Nittany Lions. I have no idea which. I don't want to misspeak and say which one is which.
I already misspoke. I already just threw it out in the wind as an idiot. I should have double checked that. Obviously, I was not the one that secured the spot. We do the show in conjunction with Seven Mountains Media, who hosts the radio side of things, gets all those things set up. So I apologize straight up for just throwing random. It's at the Penn State Hotel and Conference Center over on Innovation Park. So that place, you know what I'm talking about. 12:30. That was the worst promo I've ever done. By far the worst promo I've ever done.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, I mean, everybody's a little off this week. We talked about it in the opening.
Let's talk about the game. I asked James Franklin this yesterday, and he said, I've never been in this situation before where the offensive coordinator was fired the day before, 3 days before the game, Tuesday of the game week. The defensive coordinator was fired. They brought in an outside source 2 weeks before the game. The head coach was fired, and the interim head coach. There is just so much unknown from what UCLA is planning this week, and what Penn State should expect. So, with that in mind, let's preview the game and give you what to watch for this coming weekend. The players are staying the same, probably, so that's something. Fitz, what are you thinking about? Again, big picture, start this game off. What are you thinking about this game? Can Penn State get the get-right game? Can they put their foot down for the first quarter, the fourth quarter, and make everyone feel a little bit better, even if it's consolation blowout.
Congratulations to former Penn State defensive back Danton Lynn for getting out of that before this thing completely crumbled on its face.
For real.
Look, he had a couple million reasons to do so, to move across town. But yeah, I mean, Chip Kelly leaving, made it sort of made that column sort of tumble. And then all of a sudden it's just rolling down the hill, because you look at UCLA's offense and I mean, I don't want to say comical, because there's a lot of guys trying really hard on that sideline. They tried really hard last year, weren't very good. But you're looking at a team that, when you try to break down their offense, there's nothing there. And then, oh, by the way, they go and change the play caller, change the entire thing, and you have no idea what to expect, except that it's probably going to be really bad as well. So, like, that's what I'm looking at with the offense.
Yeah.
This is a program in disarray. And whoever gets that job next is going to have to be a portal guy. Is going to have to be a guy that can work through a lot of bureaucratic challenges on that end as well. So it's a tough job, and like scouting their offense outside of Nico really is very tough right now. Not saying that that's going to change the outcome or anything like that, but it's just very tough because there's nothing to take home and say, oh, well, they're gonna do this. So I'm interested to see how that changes. I mean, I'm not worried for Jim Knowles or Penn State's offense or anything like that, but you're just going in with a complete blank slate. They could do anything, but I just don't think they're going to do anything well.
Yeah, and on the defensive side of the ball, they decided to pivot as we, I watched on film, James Franklin outlined of like they were playing a lot of zone in the first 3 games and it was not going well, so they played man coverage, and then it was not going well against Northwestern, who, just as a side note, doesn't really have a passing game. So are they doing that this week? Because that didn't go well, because that actually, by the way, it lasted for about a half, and then they pivoted to more zone and then tried to go back to man coverage and or Northwestern scored 17 points, and then they went into a 2-minute drive, like 4-minute drive, starting the third quarter, and then just tried to bleed the clock. And it worked. So, yeah, that's what Penn State's up against this weekend. But what is the plan? I really don't know. I do want to start on the offense, and Nico Iamaleava is still a really good football player. He's not surrounded by a lot of help, Fitz, but I guess if you're looking for what could make this a game, his scrambling ability, his ability to play off platform, off schedule, and the pure arrogance he has to put the ball into any window and the confidence to do it, those stood out to me, at least on offense for UCLA. Now, I don't know necessarily who he's throwing to, but like he can make plays. So if you're expecting this to not work, like the offense would be totally useless, they will at least try to make some plays, I guess is how I've seen this one.
Yeah. And the thing about Nico, like, he's decently talented. He's not the 5-star kid that I think that Tennessee signed in the past, that where they thought they were going to be a program savior, but he can throw the ball a little bit. His targets, they could probably use a little bit more. I mean, Nico has more rushing attempts than any other player on the UCLA roster, which is pretty insane when you think about he's not necessarily a runner quarterback, So it's going to be very interesting to see how they work it out, because I you're always going to get athletes at UCLA just from where you're at, but at the same time, like, I watched them against, was it New Mexico State? They played a couple weeks ago, and they couldn't walk in the same direction. Like, it was really bad. Like, they are the worst Power 4 team. There are real chances that they can go 0-12. So, like, T. Frank, I'm sorry, man. I don't know what you want from me on this preview, because it's just like, it's going to be, to me, it's more about Penn State and how they handle things, how they regroup. And somebody said it in the chat, and I actually said it in the post game the other day. Penn State's probably going to score a bunch of points, and say about, oh, well, it feels a lot better to do that, but is it really fixed? And I don't know how you're going to know that coming out of this game.
Yeah, especially kind of bouncing back to that side of the ball with the defensive game plan. If they try to play cover one, teams this year have not played man coverage against Penn State. Like, especially on first down, they just do not play coverage against Penn State because of what Andy Kotelnicki did to man coverage last year and throughout his career, of being able to manipulate the run fronts and get big runs by formation and scheme. So if they come in with that game plan, Nick Singleton could have a day, right? Because you can just build him a landing pad or flight path, and have him take off, and it would look great. And again, like you said, is that actually translatable? Maybe if it's a confidence thing, but it feels like it's a little bit more than that with Singleton, especially too if they play man coverage and Penn State's receivers and tight ends and the group of players that have not been functioning in these zone coverage systems are still good football players, Fitz. I guess this is the thing of like, I yesterday on the show talked about some of the players that I thought were causing some issues in the scheme, but you saw productivity when they were given the opportunity from guys like Devontae Ross. I guess, what are your thoughts on if Penn State, what are the positive signs you would take away from this game on the offense that would be translatable to future games against better opponents?
Yeah, I think Ross playing the way that he did the other night, just kind of breaking out and seeing somebody sort of running free a little bit. You know, they're so constrained by what they do or what they try to do that it's tough to look at this and say that there are many positives that you can take from that. But I think Devontae Ross kind of showing up and being that guy, I think that I don't want to say like pull the gamer thing or the stereotype or the cliches and everything out here. But yeah, he stepped up in a big way and they're going to need more of that from him. They're going to need more of that from Pena. Kyron Hudson's kind of disappeared, even though he was your leading receiver going into this weekend. So how does that work? I think that's a positive. I will say, and I keep kind of beating this drum, and I'm not Nate, so I'm not as biased as him, but like Singleton can be used in a way that is good for this football team. And if he was as bad as people are making him out to be, I would hate to see that, because he hasn't been the worst player in the history of football, as many people would leave you to believe him to be. But I think there's different ways to do that. You saw it late in the game against Oregon, is to get him onto the field with Katron, to get him, for lack of a better term, as a wing back or moving around and playing some two running back sets and sort of, motioning him out and getting him into more space. And it's possible. I mean, his total yardage was not far off of Katron. Like, that's kind of how I'm looking at this whole thing, is like, yes, it's the two sides of the bus meme right now. Nick hasn't been anything that would make you light up. But for everyone that was saying Katron was, the guy hands down, I don't know that that's necessarily the case either. So they've got a lot to work on in there. And I think it's still the route is still through both of those guys. Agreed.
And the way that, again, we're going to reference Nate in his words of wisdom from earlier this week or last week, of the guy who's better at running through trash when things aren't clean and you need to have a little bit extra at the line of scrimmage to set up blocks and kind of work some of that intuitive magic of a running back that has feel for those things. That's Katron's game. We saw him break a clean run through a wide open hole and get 17, 18 yards, break a tackle at the end of it, but didn't go for 20-yard, like, rip your heart out touchdown. Like, he didn't break any angles on the safeties to get up, to have that superstar sort of like breakaway speed. He's faster. I'm not trying to take that away from him. He is, I think, playing better and is as, explosive as he's ever been in his career. But Singleton, that's what you're hoping you'll get from him. But in these situations where the offensive line is still struggling with communication and blocking up front, that is something that, with Katron, at the time, ride the hot hand, ride the situation that works. Getting Katron a couple more carries and working Singleton in, as you mentioned, I think is the obvious and predicted path forward that even James Franklin hinted at, in terms of Katron's playing well now. We need to emphasize that. The only other thing I'd say in this game is that if there is a part of the UCLA defense that works, they got some big dudes up front at defensive tackle. So they do have some, they could make some challenging running opportunities for the Penn State offensive line, because no team is the worst at every position all over the place. Like, they just functionally don't work together, as we've seen with the Penn State offense in the first month of the season. So that might still be a muddied picture if they don't do stupid things defensively to then give Penn State what they're looking for when it comes to those big plays and obvious running situations. So hopefully for Penn State, we get a clear indication of things that are going to work moving forward, and not just some kind of mirage of one-off situations that'll work in this game, but probably not against Northwestern, who does have has a stout front, and they play pretty sound defense in the next game coming up. Trying to remember all the other things I've seen on film and then ask you questions off of that. But for the most part, like, it's been tough, by the way, to watch the film and find anything interesting to talk about. You mentioned the running game with Nico Iamaleava Yeah, Nico.
I've avoided saying his last name for a reason, like because I don't want to look stupid, sound stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I accidentally called Uyangale JT2 Imoliao last week, so I've already done all the dumb things I can do.
That's much worse.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem: is I was equating the two of them in terms of their style of like this is a JT2 Imoliao type player in terms of a big physical power rusher, and then it just slipped out when I was talking about him because I was talking about Tuimoloau for 4 straight years. Anyway, T. Frank's Tangents brought to you by the ADHD in my brain. This running game, and this is kind of a general lack of health of an offense. When you're going to the quarterback run game that much, that means your standard blocking and your passing game have obvious deficiencies that you're trying to overcompensate for with extra numbers in the run game. So, like, what the quarterback running to me says is their offensive line isn't very good. And then you watch their offensive line. If they're put in obvious passing situations, this should be a game denied Dennis Sutton gets 3 sacks. Their left tackle, they've had some injuries there. 77 has played. He was their starting left tackle. And then I think he got hurt, and their right tackle bumped over to left tackle. And then at one point, the right tackle was playing left guard. So it's a mess up front. Like, it's an absolute mess up front. But 77 and 72 have been their tackles for most of the games this year. 77, I don't understand his feet don't work. He takes like these little itty bitty kick steps. Like he doesn't cover any ground. And so if you've got not even a speed rusher, just somebody who's functionally athletic to the edge, I think Penn State has a good opportunity to shut down any passing game that might come their way, but I also don't think there's going to be a lot of drop-back passing. The only other player I wanted to highlight from what I've seen is Mikey Matthews, 5'9", 180, really fast.
Yeah, like I
really
said, they can get
player.
athletes. Like they can do that. And Mikey Matthews was I believe a 4-star kid.
Yeah, the name was familiar when I looked it up. I was like, who's 7? And I was like, oh yeah, Mikey Matthews. That's a name I have heard at least once before. So they do have some athletes, but he's their slot guy. I don't know that he's going to be somebody that's going to get, away from Zion Tracy in any sense. So let's talk about the linebacker. Let's wrap up here and let's talk about the linebacker situation. What are you looking for from the linebacker room in this game from a signs of where we're going here after Tony Rojas? Dom DeLuca is going to play. We kind of know that. Do you think they're going to get Alex Tasher, Cam Smith, or Keon Wiley into the game during the first half competitive portion? Or do you think that they're going to go, let's secure the victory and then work the guys in late, hoping they can get like a third and fourth quarter sort of situation with these guys?
Yeah, I think you got to play Wiley right away, at least. Then maybe Specca as well, because I think what they will do is coach this game like they've coached many games where they have decided talent advantages and work those rotations through. Now, don't forget they've got a travel roster where they're limited to how many guys they can take. So do all 3 of the linebackers make it? Probably. Tash was in a scout team jersey last night, which I thought was interesting. Cam Smith was in his own number 26. LeVar Arrington was in a number 6 scout team jersey. And also what they typically do, and I'm not sure, this is not like reporting, this is kind of reading the trends over the years, is LeVar is from, that area. So they tend to, when they go on road trips not 4 guys, but when they go on road trips to areas of where they've recruited guys, they'll take them along as true freshmen, even if they don't play. So would not be shocked if all 3 of those guys were out there. But yeah, I think they do the thing where they go through the rotations, and you saw, if you're doing like a line graph of rep counts or snap counts from Penn State's season, it was pretty even, shot up for Oregon. I think it's going to go back down pretty even this week.
Makes sense. So let's get into our game predictions. Given what Fitz and I have said, I think we know where this is going, but I don't know that either of us has the confidence to say, like, yeah, this is a Indiana versus Illinois situation where Indiana is just going to turn them inside out and make this a game that is like a statement, okay, we're back sort of game. So give me your thoughts on where this goes and then your game prediction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know that it's going to be pretty. We've seen this situation before, and I think that, probably the East Coast to West Coast thing is a thing, but it's probably overemphasized. But I could still see some ugly offense. You could still see an opportunity. God, I went right back there again. You can still see a chance for Penn State to put up some points, but at the same time, after watching what you watched last week in the first 3 quarters, it's like, all right, I'm going to see it when I can believe it. So that's where I'm at with the Penn State offense. I think they should be able to, make this comfortable. The spread is actually smaller than I thought it would be. Last I checked on BetMGM, I think it was 25.5. I'll have to double check that because that was a day or two ago. So we'll see what happens. I think they have the ability to break some runs, notably with moving around, getting Singleton in there. So, but like what you want to see is structure, schematics, sequencing changes, right? And also player changes. Like Drew, throw the ball away once in a while. It'll help.
Which he was great at one point in his career. It was one of the best things he did.
Yes. And then now all of a sudden it's like the sack that he took, either throw it out there for Luke Reynolds to make a play or throw it in the stands. Same with the interception. Like do some of these little things that will make your team function in the big picture more so than the play-to-play situation.
If there's a guy who's hungry and is pressing to make plays and prove himself as a senior, it's Drew Aller. Like, there's no question. He's even in the postgame said, like, I tried to fit the ball over that guy. Like, meaning he saw him and thought he could get the right trajectory on that ball to throw it. Now, I don't know, like, if that's, he retroactively saw the guy or he just threw that because predetermined. I don't know. That's what he said. So a guy that is trying to make plays for his offense. And I don't know. I would rather a guy
trying to flip the script in one play, basically. And
I
don't think you can do that.
And flip the narrative, right? Of a guy who can't make plays or won't make good plays or won't.
Yeah, I mean, we're working. We're on the same path here, buddy. I think it's just one of those things where when you get dug down deep and, especially for a game there where you come back and you force overtime, you force double overtime, then this is the redemption story, and you try to end it more so than, it's kind of like the show. I'm trying to end it, and it's like, what else do we got coming up? So, and you've just tried to make it so that everything goes away in the blink of an eye, and that's not how it's going to happen in college football.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you meant the game script of how it had gone, but yeah, both being true in that situation.
The whole thing. So yeah, and again, you've seen that with Klubnik, you're seeing that with Nussmeier at LSU, you're seeing that with Arch a little bit, like you're seeing that with these quarterbacks that have these weight of expectations on them because of everything that's going on in college football, and all those guys are having similar situations.
Ryan isn't here, but he still has his prediction. Want to give it to you. 35-13, he says Penn State wins over UCLA. So, again, going in the 30s, I don't think anyone's saying that Penn State's going to cover in this situation. Greg, by the way, did pick that on Best Bets yesterday, which I was just like, okay, wow, Greg. Yeah, his one last-ditched effort is what he said. Like, this is the last time. If it doesn't hit, we're never going here again. For me, it's kind of the same thing, 35-10. I didn't go for field goals this time, so that was probably a mistake. But 35-10, I think that UCLA can get some movement, but overall completely overmatched. So thank you for the time here today, Fitz. Appreciate you.
Did I give a prediction? I don't think I gave my prediction. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I put it up there. I thought we did that.
You may have. I was just in a daze here thinking about, Anyway, 37-3 is what I have for the podcast audience. I do have Penn State, winning comfortably, which is crazy to think about, like where this spread is and where Penn State is probably from a mental aspect coming off of that. But UCLA is very bad, very bad. So, and 37 points isn't as much as you would think. Like they can still have a stalled offensive output and still score 37 points. We've seen it before.
Yep, and I'm not trying to drag out the show, but we do have one more thing that's important to point out.
Well, what about
Bo?
Yeah, Dad. Don't you think you should apologize to
Bo?
What about Bo? Rated PG. Maybe.
Bo Perbula playing Alabama this weekend. So the 10th ranked Crimson Tide. We're going to find some stuff out about Bo Perbula. Not that we haven't found out he's very good this year, but we'll find out. That's his Oregon game coming up this weekend. And, of course, luckily it's at noon, so we'll be able to talk about it on the postgame show because Penn State's playing at 3:30. So
isn't your pregame show just a live stream of watching Bo?
It should be.
That would do numbers
a watch party.
Universities. Also, that was not on the rundown. I was completely taken aback by What About Bo? That was a new one for me.
Yeah, we debuted it on the post-game show, but I wanted to make sure we got it here on the Thursday show, just for the general regular audience, anybody that doesn't catch the post-game show. We are not ignoring you in the chat when we talk about Bo Perbula. We save it for segments instead of it being the entire show, which we will talk again on the postgame show about what about Bo and how he does against Alabama. And it is not here to dump on Bo Pribula. It is genuinely, we're just tracking it, and we're going to be a part of the conversation this year. So that does it for today's show. I'm Thomas Frankar. Sean Fitz does an awesome job keeping up with me as I'm just going off on wild tangents and steering the car off cliffs. Just an awesome, fun show this week. Thank you.
Wait till you find out that Missouri's off this week and they play Alabama next week.
Oh, no! I did it too quickly. I wasn't paying attention to the date. It's October 11th. Oh, no.
Details, man. Details.
That's why you double check before. This is why, by the way, you need to have bye in your schedule at all times. There should be a bye even if you're not playing. So my bad, everybody. We'll do better this weekend. Talk to you later.